The news at 11 begins with a case we followed from the start. Tonight, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is back on U.S. soil, but now the Maryland man is facing serious federal charges. You might remember Abrego Garcia was deported in March to El Salvador, despite questions around the legality of that move. Since then, his family and lawmakers have been pushing to bring him back to the States. Thank you for staying up with us tonight. I'm Leslie Foster, and here are three things we know right now where the case stands. First, Abrego Garcia landed in Tennessee and went before a judge this afternoon. He will stay there until his next hearing next week. Second, he's been indicted on 2 criminal charges. And lastly, just a few hours ago, President Trump, who has been outspoken about not allowing Abrego Garcia to return to the U.S., he talked about his return and those charges.
Was this your call to bring him back to the United States?
I don't want to say that.
Mr. President, you posted yesterday.
And by the way, either way, it's a disaster. It's a whole disaster when you look at him with his antics. Not good. And for the Democrats who have backed him, this was not the man from Maryland, this wonderful father from Maryland. This is a pretty bad guy.
Tonight we have team coverage on this high-profile case. Let's begin with our Katie Lusso to break down what's in this indictment and the serious charges he's facing. Katie.
Yeah, and Leslie, just in the last 30 minutes, we got these new courtroom sketches into our newsroom of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from the hearing this afternoon. Now, tonight, as you mentioned, Leslie, we learned that his next hearing is a week from today. But tonight, United States Attorney General Pam Bondi called him a danger to our community, accusing him of trafficking guns, drugs, women, and children.
This was his full-time job, not a contractor. He was a smuggler.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia is back in the United States and now facing criminal charges in what the government called an administrative error. He was deported to a prison in El Salvador in March. Last month, he was indicted by a grand jury, and Friday, the 2-count indictment was unsealed. It lists 2 charges: conspiracy to transport aliens and unlawful transportation of undocumented aliens.
He made over 100 trips. This defendant trafficked firearms and narcotics throughout our country on multiple occasions.
It was filed in Tennessee, where Abrego Garcia was stopped by law enforcement in 2022.
How many rows have you got in here? 4? Where? 4 seats? 4 rows of seats?
In police body camera footage, you can hear the officer ask him about the number of seats. Investigators say he was driving a van with 8 other men in the car. None of them had ID.
Nothing illegal?
Nothing, sir.
No drugs or anything?
No herb, nothing illegal.
He wasn't charged with anything at the time. When asked what changed, why is he being charged now?
What has changed is Donald Trump is now president of the United States and our borders are again secure.
She says the accusations are disturbing.
A co-conspirator alleged that the defendant solicited nude photographs and videos of a minor. A co-conspirator also alleges the defendant played a role in the murder of a rival gang member's mother.
This just makes crystal clear what we've been saying, frankly, for the past 2 months, is that they've been playing games with the court.
His legal team tonight calling the accusations absurd.
That almost all of the information they have comes from 2 supposed co-conspirators, both of whom have already been federally prosecuted and who are likely sitting in a federal prison somewhere. So the very first question I'm going to be asking is, what were those 2 people offered to make up these really fantastic, hyperbolic allegations against Mr. Abrego Garcia?
Now, Bondi says if he is convicted, he'll serve his time in the U.S. and then be sent back to El Salvador. Now, his attorney, as you heard him say, they plan to fight this every step of the way. Leslie.
All right, Katie, that is part 1 of this story. The next thing is he's here, and Abrego Garcia's return is raising more questions than answers. So what's next in his legal fight? Melissa Kim joins us now. Melissa, what are the chances that he's able to stay in the United States or be sent back to El Salvador? Do we know that yet?
Well, Leslie, we do. I spoke to an immigration lawyer tonight who said, make no mistake, Kilmar Abrego Garcia's return was handled in a very deliberate way. And tonight, his attorney had strong words about the process.
What happened today is an abuse of power. What happened today is the exact opposite of due process, because due process means the opportunity to defend yourself before you're punished, not afterwards.
Kelly Ortega Escobar is an immigration attorney. She says the Trump administration pressing criminal charges of conspiracy to bring undocumented migrants to the U.S. indirectly complies with the previous Supreme Court order to bring Abrego Garcia back to the U.S.
This was a way that they could facilitate his return under their own terms to keep the narrative going that Kilmar is a criminal, that Kilmar is a gang member.
So what happens next? A federal judge in Tennessee will determine if Abrego Garcia will be tried in front of a jury or just face a judge.
However it ends up, whether he's convicted or not, he will then return to immigration custody. And the result of this case will definitely be a key factor in an immigration proceeding, whether he gets to keep that protection that he had been given to remain in the United States, or if this is sufficient to remove that protection.
Ortega Escobar believes the Trump administration is sending a message to other immigrants.
We see you as criminals. We will, even if we do something wrong, even if we deny you due process, we will find a way to press charges. I think this is the Trump administration is trying to keep the word criminal and immigrant intertwined.
Her advice for immigrants:
the best thing that an immigrant can do right now is to know their rights, to speak with prepared and proper immigration counsel.
Now, Abrego Garcia is set to be arraigned a week from today, as we've been telling you, on those conspiracy charges. He will remain in federal custody in Tennessee until then, and we'll be following it every step of the way. Leslie?
Yeah, so hopefully we will learn more next week about whether he will actually make it back to Maryland. We'll see. All right, we've got new reaction on this case from Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown. In a statement, he said, and we're quoting here, discussions of possible criminal charges only emerged after Mr. Abrego Garcia's wrongful removal. If those concerns were credible and supported by evidence, they should have been addressed through lawful means before violating a standing judicial order. We're also hearing from other Maryland lawmakers. Representative Glenn Ivey went to El Salvador about 2 weeks ago to try and bring Abrego Garcia home. He said this is the first step toward getting some type of due process.
Up until yesterday, apparently, the Trump administration was saying they couldn't bring him back. He was outside of their control and their jurisdiction. It's clear they could bring him back, and hopefully they'll bring back the other 250 plus Venezuelans and others who are in this odd status of deportation, even though they haven't done anything or been convicted of any criminal activity.
We're also hearing from Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. He traveled to El Salvador and actually met with Abrego Garcia. And in a statement, he said, quote, "As I have repeatedly said, this is not about the man. It's about his constitutional rights and the rights of all. The administration will now have to make its case in the court of law, as it should have all along." Of course, we will continue to stay on top of this story, and we will have all of our coverage and updates available on WUSA9.com and streaming on WUSA 9+.